In the span of 48 hours, the Houston Texans executed 15 decisive moves, not whispers or theories. 15 concrete roster transformations were made before most organizations even fielded their second offer. As the rest of the NFL was spending money as if it had no value, Nick Caserio held back, bided his time, and then unleashed a strategic blitz that caught the entire AFC completely off guard. Stroud is about to enter his third year with a dramatically reconfigured arsenal of players surrounding him. This was a front office that absorbed every bit of criticism about failing to protect their star quarterback, and instead of issuing statements, they simply went to work. This is a far cry from the squad that wrapped up last season shrouded in uncertainty. This is a roster that was fundamentally reconstructed in 2 days, beginning with the offense. David Montgomery arrives from Detroit via a trade, and if you saw him play with the Lions, you understand the immediate impact. He's more than a running back. He is the player who dictates the entire attitude of a game by lowering his shoulder. He pushes the line of scrimmage forward and forces the defense to commit to stopping the run long before your quarterback even takes a 3-step drop. This single addition alters the landscape for C.J. Stroud, introducing a legitimate ground threat that alleviates the burden on the passing attack, which in turn creates openings for explosive plays downfield. But the overhaul didn't end there. The defense is returning almost entirely intact. Will Anderson Jr. is still a cornerstone, Danielle Hunter's contract was just extended, and Sheldon Rankins is secured with a new agreement. The secondary has been reinforced with new talent. This was already a formidable unit on that side of the ball, and they astonishingly managed to retain every single pivotal player. Now, this is where the plot thickens. The entire league is buzzing about the superstar names, the high-profile maneuvers, and the massive contracts that are dominating the news cycle. However, the most brilliant action the Texans took might just be the one that hasn't been fully appreciated yet. They locked down an offensive lineman for $10 million per year, a player with years of starting experience at the highest level, and there's a significant possibility he won't even be playing the position that everyone has penciled him in for. That single choice could quietly redefine their entire offensive front. Once you dig into the data behind this acquisition, you'll see why it might be the most significant move of the entire offseason. But before we dive in, smash that like and subscribe button for all Texans and NFL coverage. Our goal is 500 likes on this video. Consider the market for tackles at this moment. Teams are shelling out 13, 14, even 15 million a year for players many fans wouldn't recognize. This is the consequence of letting your starting tackles enter the open market. They are nearly impossible to replace, a fact every general manager in the league is painfully aware of. You either re-sign your own guys or pay an exorbitant price for someone else's. Laramie Tunsil's new contract from Washington, worth over $30 million a year, just made him the highest paid tackle in the entire NFL. That's the price for elite pass protection. That was the hyper-inflated market the Texans were navigating, yet they emerged with Braden Smith for $10 million annually on a 2-year, $20 million deal that could escalate to $25 million, with $13.5 million fully guaranteed. We're talking about a veteran who has started 105 games over 8 NFL seasons with the Indianapolis Colts. In his 76 snaps last season, he allowed only a single sack and committed 6 penalties. And back in 2022, at his peak, he earned a 90.1 run blocking grade from PFF. He was once the highest paid right tackle in football. It's true, his availability has been a concern over the past few seasons. He hasn't completed a full season since 2019, but the Texans didn't sign him as a wild gamble. They structured his contract like a calculated investment, complete with a built-in insurance policy, because Trent Brown is waiting in the wings, prepared to take over if any issues arise. The real narrative isn't simply that the Texans acquired their target, it's that they did so while the rest of the league was frantically overspending during the initial chaos of free agency. But the most astounding aspect of this signing isn't the bargain price, it's the position he may ultimately be asked to command. This is the detail that is flying under the radar. During his collegiate career at Auburn, Braden Smith logged 2,532 snaps at guard. At tackle, he played a mere 125. He was projected as a guard entering the NFL draft. He was scouted as a guard, and he was drafted to be a guard. The sole reason he was ever shifted to tackle was due to an emergency situation in Indianapolis, where they had to throw him in at right tackle against the Patriots. It took only that one game. A personnel executive within the Colts organization saw enough to believe he could stick there, and he did for the next 8 years. But he's in Houston now, and the Texans don't share the same predicament Indianapolis had. They have no desperate need for a right tackle. They are already set at that position. Trent Brown started at right tackle last season, and the Texans posted a perfect 7-0 record with him there. That is no mere coincidence. That is the mark of a player who has proven he owns that job. So when NFL draft analyst Lance Zierlein published his report highlighting the Texans' opening at left guard and mentioning 2 players already on the roster capable of competing at right tackle, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. If you shift Braden Smith back to his natural position at guard, your offensive line suddenly transforms into Arante Ursary, Smith, Jake Andrews, Ed Ingram, and Trent Brown. That is a radically different and more formidable unit than anyone imagined just 48 hours prior, and this kind of strategic flexibility is nothing new for Houston. The Texans have long valued offensive linemen with positional versatility. Titus Howard played left tackle, right tackle, and both guard spots everything but center during his tenure with the franchise. This front office shows absolutely no reluctance to move a player to the interior if it results in a stronger, more cohesive line. Smith's final position will probably be influenced by who is available in the draft. However, the versatility he provides has already given the Texans a wealth of options that most teams in this league would have to pay double to secure. While the offense is sporting a new look, the defense might have become even more terrifying. The average fan tends to focus on pass rushers and cornerbacks when analyzing a defense. But the players who truly anchor the entire back end are the safeties. They patrol the most territory, they diagnose the quarterback's intentions before anyone else, and they are the ones who turn 12-yard receptions into 5-yard gains. They are responsible for the tipped passes that lead to interceptions for their teammates, and when they are absent, the entire defensive structure can collapse. Houston painfully discovered that reality last season. While K'Waun Williams held his own, the other safety position was a constant rotation of players. C.J. Gardner-Johnson was released after just 3 games, and M.J. Stewart was sidelined with an injury in Week 10. Jalen Reed was moved in and out of the lineup. Despite this, the Texans managed to field one of the league's top defenses, but that position was the glaring vulnerability on an otherwise commanding unit. And that brings us to Reed Blankenship, the ultimate game changer. Here's a player who was written off before he even began. No one drafted him out of Middle Tennessee State back in 2022. He had $0 guaranteed dollars and absolutely no fanfare. Yet, he stepped into the Eagles facility and clawed his way onto the roster, then into the starting lineup, and ultimately became a key piece in Philadelphia's Super Bowl victory in 2024. During that championship run, the Eagles' defense suffocated opposing offenses, surrendering a mere 174 passing 7 yards per game, the best mark in the entire league. Over his 56 games in Philadelphia, Blankenship racked up an incredible 308 tackles, snatched 9 interceptions, and broke up 23 passes. Houston secured him with a 3-year, $24.75 million contract, locking in $16.5 million guaranteed. Imagine him now, teamed up with Bullock in the defensive backfield. This allows Jalen Petrie to slide into his perfect fit as the dedicated slot corner, while Derek Stingley Jr. and Kamari Lassiter patrol the boundaries. Suddenly, that secondary isn't just formidable, it's downright terrifying. And we haven't even mentioned the monsters on the defensive line, whose sole purpose is to make opposing quarterbacks see ghosts. Titles aren't won with splashy headlines. They're forged in the details, the moves that most fans barely notice as they scan the roster. This is precisely where the Texans focus their attention next. They locked down Ka'imi Fairbairn with a 2-year, $13 million extension. At $6.5 million annually, that contract makes him the top-paid kicker in the whole NFL. Last year, he was flawless on extra points, hitting 28 out of 28 for a perfect 100%. He only failed to convert 4 field goal attempts the entire season. You simply don't let that level of reliability walk out the door. You secure that talent and focus elsewhere. The Texans acted decisively, getting ahead of the curve before players like Brandon Aubrey and Cam Little could reset the market and drive the price up. Next was a savvy move at punter that almost nobody noticed. Houston sent a 2028 6th-round pick to New Orleans and received Kai Kruger in return, plus a 2028 7th-rounder. Kruger, at just 23 years old, is only heading into his sophomore season. He handled punting duties in all 17 games for the Saints last year, boasting a 44.8-yard average on 56 kicks, pinning 18 of them deep inside the 20. But this is what sets him apart. During his college days at South Carolina, Kruger was a weapon, renowned for his ability to execute trick plays. We're talking completed passes, touchdowns, and successful fake punts. Special teams coordinator Frank Ross now possesses an asset on his punt team that most coaches can only fantasize about. And the acquisitions didn't stop there. Enter Jake Hemmel, Inked to a 2-year contract valued at $5.25 million, H-Mel was on the field for an astounding 82% of Baltimore's special teams plays last season, including a critical block punt against the Browns in Week 2. This is a linebacker who clocked a 4.51 40-yard dash. With 49 career tackles, he provides crucial depth behind Azeez Al-Shaair and Henry To'o. But his primary mission is to be a disruptive force on coverage teams, completely changing the field position battle. 3 special teams aces, all secured, 3 acquisitions that went largely unnoticed, and that's the chasm that separates a merely good team from one truly constructed for a championship. But as the Texans were making surgically precise, intelligent investments, franchises all over the league were doing the complete opposite. That initial surge of free agency, it's a period of collective insanity for front offices. It's a predictable pattern, year after year. One team gets desperate, another opens the vault, and in an instant, the financial benchmark is established at a level that defies all logic. This year was a perfect example. The Las Vegas Raiders awarded Tyler Linderbaum a 3-year, $81 million contract, with $60 million of it guaranteed. That amounts to $27 million a year for a center. To put that in perspective, the highest paid center before this deal was Creed Humphrey, earning $18 million. That represents a $9 million annual leap at a position that most organizations refuse to allocate top-tier money to. The Raiders entered the offseason with more salary cap room than anyone, and they burned through $281 million in just that initial frenzy. Trailing just behind them were the Tennessee Titans, who spent $270 million. Now, let's examine the contracts that reshaped the financial landscape at other positions. Alec Pierce re-signed with the Colts on a 4-year, $116 million deal. A receiver who has never been the primary target for his own offense just got compensated like an elite number 1. In contrast, Houston's Nico Collins earns $24 million annually. I'll let you decide who the superior talent is. Washington handed Laramie Tunsil a 2-year, $60.2 million extension, making him the highest paid tackle in the entire sport. Zion Johnson inked a 3-year, $49.5 million agreement to play guard for Cleveland. The Giants also shelled out a massive contract for tight end Isaiah Likely. Tennessee awarded Jaleel Robinson a 4-year, $78 million contract, despite most analysts viewing him as a number 3 wide receiver at best. Across the league, NFL franchises shelled out approximately $2.3 billion during the initial period of free agency. $2.3 billion. And all the while, the Texans remained patient, sidestepped the chaotic spending spree, and plugged every gap on their roster for a mere fraction of those exorbitant costs. Securing Ed Ingram for 3 years at $37.5 million seems like an absolute steal when compared to the contracts being given to guards around the league. Each and every transaction Houston executed appears more brilliant when held up against the backdrop of pandemonium elsewhere. But the real question is, how will this all come together once the season kicks off? The answer to that lies in the opponents they'll face. Just bring up the Houston Texans' 2026 opponent list and take a long, hard look. At home, they'll host the Colts, Jaguars, Titans, Ravens, Bengals, Cowboys, Giants, and the Bills. On the road, they will travel to face the Colts, Jaguars, Titans, Browns, Steelers, Chargers, Eagles, Commanders, and the Packers. That's 17 games in total. Their 14 different opponents had a collective winning percentage of just .475 last season. That's a sub-500 record. Following 2 consecutive years of battling against first-place schedules, the Texans are finally presented with a lineup of opponents that tilts in their favor. Consider this. 5 of their 8 opponents at home struggled with losing records on the road in 2025. While it's far from an easy path, it's certainly a manageable gauntlet. And for a squad fresh off a 12-5 campaign, that's the precise kind of launch pad needed to soar even higher. It all begins within their own division. Houston dominated the AFC South last season with a 5-1 record. The Titans, by contrast, ended with a 3-4 divisional record. The Colts possess talent, but they've yet to demonstrate the consistency to string it together for an entire season. Meanwhile, the Jaguars posted a formidable 13-4 record, and Trevor Lawrence finally blossomed into the superstar quarterback everyone anticipated. That rivalry is undeniably intense, but the Texans have been constructed specifically to meet that challenge. There are 6 divisional contests on the slate. If they can replicate last year's dominance and take care of business, they'll lay the groundwork for securing a top seed in the playoffs. Their identity will be forged in the fires of battle against the league's juggernauts, the AFC North and the NFC East. These are the showdowns that define a franchise. A home clash with Baltimore, a brutal road test in Philly, a December war with Pittsburgh, and a trip to the legendary Lambeau Field. It is in these arenas that contenders are separated from champions, all while the balance of power in the AFC is in complete upheaval. The Giants are beginning to falter. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are bleeding talent, while Lamar Jackson's Ravens have watched cornerstone players head for the exit. Even the ever-present threat of Josh Allen and the Bills looks more vulnerable than ever. A power vacuum has formed. The conference crown is there for the taking. Houston possesses the arsenal of talent. They see a clear path forward on their schedule, and they are guided by a front office that just put on a masterclass in maximizing the impact of every single dollar. And at the center of this storm is the architect himself. In a stunning 48-hour blitz, Nick Caserio executed 15 surgical strikes, silencing every doubter with deals that were pure genius, never once overspending. The offensive line was instantly transformed, adding titans like Braden Smith, Ed Ingram, and Trent Brown. On defense, they created a nightmare, locking down cornerstone Will Anderson Jr., unleashing the devastating Danielle Hunter and Sheldon Rankins, and adding Reed Blankenship to a secondary already featuring Derek Stingley Jr., Kamari Lassiter, and Ken Bullock. And the most terrifying part? Stroud is still just getting started. Remember, this was a 12-5 team just a season ago. With these moves, the Texans have just put the entire AFC on notice. They are not just knocking on the door of contention, they are blowing it clean off its hinges. Model